Good morning, everybody. Or, well, that's probably a really bad way to start a podcast because what if you listen to this at nighttime? Not a good start. Episode 51 is a midweek treat, a little midweek taste. This is actually a repost of the Knock On podcast, episode number 188. And this occurred, 2-3 days ago? Post CrossFit Games. Josh Bridges, and if you listen to the Cleared Hot podcast, which if you're listening to this, it's probably likely that you do, you'll recognize the name Josh Bridges. He had just finished up his, I don't even know how many, I actually meant to ask him how many years in a row it was, but he had just finished his competitive time out at Madison at the games and decided to swing by John Dudley's house to pick up a bow, an awesome bow at that, and a little bit of instruction. So, of course, if you're going to have a bunch of people together that are awesome, what you need to do, you got to sit down and podcast. So that's what we did. Originally released by Knock On, like I said, the Knock On podcast. So essentially, this episode is brought to you by the Knock On podcast. That's right. This episode of my podcast is brought to you by an episode of somebody else's podcast. And I think that's fair because I get hit up all the time from people asking about archery information from me, which is not a good call. Let's just be honest. It's not a good call yet. Hopefully, I'll be a wealth and resource of information at some point, but I'm not there yet. So I defer all questions back to Dudley. So you need to go to knockonarchery.com and start scrolling through. That website will land you or lead you towards videos, educational videos, training videos, release aid videos, building your bow videos. Go to town. If you have a few days off, you probably still couldn't get through the information. So I'm sorry that I can't answer archery questions. Fortunately, I know somebody who can. And that's about it. So enjoy episode 51.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
We're literally in the backyard right now looking at a bunch of cool archery targets, corn, which is pretty much mandatory in Iowa. And I'm here with Josh Bridges, aka Jeff Bridges,
AKA.
and Andy Stump. So yeah, we just had a cool day of archery and eating. You missed the grilling part, Josh.
I did.
You were.
I did miss the best part of that though, which was eating it.
Yeah. So you just literally 1 day ago. Was it 1 day ago? What is today?
Today's Tuesday.
Oh, 2 days ago, you finished up what I think was a pretty spectacular games because I kind of knew that you were less than 100% going in, and Andy and I both had kind of our assumptions that you wouldn't be able to get through it all without totally destroying yourself.
You weren't the only person.
You really let me down. I had all my
Right.
chips in on you quitting the first day. That's what I taught you in Buds. When
Right.
things get hard,
Quit.
just give up.
Quit now, avoid the rush. Always. Yeah.
How did you feel overall, though? I mean, other than pain, a lot of
A
pain.
lot of pain. I was happy. I was happy to get through it in the end because I went in with the same expectations as you guys just had, with probably not getting through Wednesday, which is the day it started, and the announcements kept coming out of workouts, and I was like, okay, I can do that. I think I can still do that. I think I can still do that. And so I took a different mindset going into this year's games as opposed to years prior, where the goal is always to win. This year was like, hey, if you get to compete, just be happy because you shouldn't probably be here. Because there was a bunch of times where I almost withdrew prior to, since regionals to games. Just messed up my knee doing something during regionals or right after. I don't know what happened, but so I couldn't really train the way I wanted to going into it. So I was like, well, I can withdraw or I can just try and go and see how far I can get through it. So the fact that I actually ended the weekend competing in every event, I was pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about like tournament expectations and just mindsets in the last podcast
with Jocko. Yeah,
with me, you, and Jocko. And I always think athletes do themselves a disservice when they always put the pressure of themselves on, like, having to win or having to like fulfill maybe an image that that they had at one time. It's like, you get to different levels in your career where you want to still achieve goals, but your goals are just, they're different. I mean, it seems like every decade I totally feel like I felt like I was a different person in my 30s. I felt like I was a totally different person in my 20s, and then in my teens I felt like I was I might not even have liked myself. Looking back, I probably wouldn't have. But I think when people are able to do what you did, I almost feel like they get to a whole new level as an athlete and as a competitor. It's almost like that is when you all of a sudden hit this like Jedi apex to where, one, you know what you needed to do to like be 100%, and you proved to yourself that you could do that at one time. But then you also start to really accept where you're at and have different goals. And was this probably the most beat up you've ever been there?
Going to the games, yes. I've never been during regionals. I kept getting really frustrated, or after regionals, like training in between before games. I kept getting really, really frustrated because I've never been so like debilitated during like to train, like where like I couldn't run, I couldn't go below parallel. So I really couldn't train heavy lifting at all, which so I'm thinking in my head like, so if there's no squatting or running at the games, I should be good. Which
day one,
which is typically opposite. It's like a lot of running and a lot of going below parallel. So my expectations were really, really low.
We saw, me and Andy were together when day one got announced, and Andy just goes, "My God!" Well, I think we were like just getting ready to go up in a plane.
Yeah,
and he's like,
"Well, I thought I misread the row marathon. I thought it said run." I'm like, "Oh no!"
That would have ended the weekend.
I was going to ask you, what workouts coming out would you have thrown the talent on? Like, what was your worst nightmare scenario?
Pistols. Pistols was like the thing where I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do a pistol.
Did it come up at all?
It did. It came up in the chaos work.
And then you just did it anyway?
And I did. so the workout was crazy. It was something they'd never done before, where you literally had no idea what you were doing or how many reps you were doing. And you walked out and you walked up to your, and then once you walked out, and like they kind of kept us in seclusion while the females went. And then so we had no idea what was going on. And we walked out, and you walk up to your judge, and they're like, your judge is going to tell you to start going on a certain movement, but they're not going to tell you how many reps you have. And then when you're finished, they're going to be like, okay, move on to the next thing. And then they're going to tell you to start doing something. Like, so it was a ski erg, and so I start going, and I'm like, you have no idea how many calories you're going to row. And then the guy next to me actually finished a little bit ahead of me, and so I just looked over at the screen. He's like, "Okay, 35 calories. Okay, cool." And then
smart.
But then he walked up and he started doing burpees, and I was like, "Okay, burpees aren't bad, whatever." And I'll just do those until I gotta stop. And you had to do 25 or 30 of those, and then we walked up, and then he walked up to the next movement, and the next movement was a really light overhead squat with a dumbbell. And I was like, okay, if I lean to my right, I should be fine with that. The dumbbell was super light. It was only like 50 pounds. Got through that. And then he finished the overhead squats before I did, and he walked up to the next movement, and it was just a little black square mat. And he started doing pistols.
Oh, no.
And he started doing pistols. And I like went into like complete depression. I was like, just head dropped. I was like, here we go. This is the end. And so I finished my overhead squats, and I walk up to that little black mat, and
it's been good knowing you.
I'm like, okay, I'll do one on my right side. I'll do my very first one, and then I'll probably just have to stand here for however many minutes the time cap was, which I think it was like 14 minutes or something, and this was at minute probably 6. And I'm like, so I'm going to stand on this black mat for about 7-8 minutes and just think about how bad my life sucks.
Cheer other people on.
Right, yeah. Good job, guys. Doing great. So I did one, kind of took a second, stepped back, and started thinking, and I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I'm in it. Let's just see. Let's just skirt the line. And I dropped down in my first one. I mean, I'm going to the highest, lowest point I need to go. You know, like I'm only going down as far as I need to. And I came up, and he was like, good rep. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yep.
So I go back to my right side, come back to the left. I got no rep a few times because I was, I was skirting that line. I was pushing it hard. I'm like, I'm not going any deeper than I need to go. And I got through them, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that just happened, to be honest. That was tell you the truth, that was like a huge win for me. So because I thought for sure, like, that was it. I'm done. Pistols show up, game over. I'm heading to the bar.
Yeah.
That's what we were banking on.
Yeah. I thought you were done that
yeah.
first day.
Me too, man. I'm not gonna lie. But then, the first workout was a bike. I'm like, biking's fine. I have no issues with biking. There's no impact. It's like, it's fine.
I was looking at the CrossFit Total back squat.
Yeah.
Wondering how that was going to treat you.
Yeah. Well, I immediately was like, if there's no minimum, I'm fine. Like I
see what you're saying.
So like, if there's no minimum requirement, then it is what it is. I'll just I'll have to take this one on the chin, get a 0. Get 0 points for it, come in last place. But then he put minimum requirements on it. So the back squat had to be, you had to at least back squat 315. And I was like, I went to the gym the day before, and I was like, the CrossFit Total was announced probably like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to work up and see what I can hit on a back squat. And hit 325 the day before. And it hurt, but I was like, okay, like at least I won't look like I'm not trying, so when he put that 315 minimum on there, I was like, okay, I can do that. So, and that's basically, I told him, I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna hit 315 and I'm gonna call it a day. So, and he's like, all right.
Yeah.
Tell Dave that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid phone. I've got one person that somehow skirts under my airplane mode.
I get that occasionally too. Like, I know it's in airplane mode and a text shows up.
Yeah, Antoine, anytime he texts me, he freaking gets in under my scrambler. He's got some kind of a power hack. This coffee's legit.
It is
Josh.
legit.
Good.
Josh just took about 45 minutes to make us 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
But it's solid. Definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of your first? I guess we shot some last night, and then we made a few adjustments, and then you shot this morning. So what's your first impressions of a new way of archery?
Man, I love it. I think this is, I think I'm going to have to go pro, that's, I'm going to go hard.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm going to go hard.
Deep into the paint.
Deep.
He's actually blown out a pretty good little black hole on that top right dot on that block target.
Yeah, he is.
He's been wearing that out. Yeah, I mean,
are
you surprised at your accuracy this quick?
Yeah, for sure. Like I have no expectations. I'm here with you and Andy. I know you
He's
guys.
lying.
No,
He's
he's
lying
got
to you
no
right
expectation.
now.
Like,
I
I don't
he's
expect anything.
So I'm just like, yeah, I'll just come over here and have some fun, and enjoy the getting top level, instruction, and so I'd say the only reason I'm having that such good is because I'm being taught so well.
Well, it definitely helps with anything.
Right.
I mean,
I'd
with-
say that
with
and
anything.
the crossover between marksmanship in general. There's a lot
Yeah.
of similarities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like for me I didn't grow up shooting stuff, like shooting guns, shooting bows, anything like that. So I've been taught. I didn't build a lot of bad habits.
Yeah.
To where a lot of people, like grow up not having that instruction. Where I came in pretty fresh and just had really good teachers.
That's why women and youth are so good for coaching, because the slate's clean.
Right.
And with youth, there's a little bit more struggle because they're not totally developed. So you're kind of having to, we taught Andy's boy Tyler to shoot 2 days ago, and there's certain like posture aspects to where they just don't have the muscle recruitment to be able to pull a bow back as easy and stand in really proper form. It'll come very fast, like probably faster than us, but those first few days, it's like, okay, just look past that. Let's just key in on these areas because this is what's most important, and then that stuff we can fix pretty quick later.
Yeah.
And then obviously with you shot, one, your marksman background with, on the teams with Andy, but then
He didn't quite make it to the sniper level, though.
Yeah, this is a great story.
Oh,
Let's okay.
All right, we can tell the story.
Let's
Yeah.
story time.
Story time.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah,
So
so-
Josh,
so-
why weren't you a sniper?
Yeah, so new guy in the platoon, and I got the sniper billet, which is
Unheard of.
not normal at all. And I was like, this is sweet. So when I was going through, I think they've adjusted recently where you have to go through a couple courses. Now it's all just one big sniper course. Because we used to go through pick, scout, and then sniper.
Pick his photography.
Yeah, where you basically, I guess you stalk and you take pictures though, more like surveillance or reconnaissance.
Yeah.
And then scout is all of the just straight stalking stuff as well, and that's a super fun course. But you have to shoot a a marksmanship qualification with your M4 to get to go to sniper, and so. We get through pick and scout, and then we come up to our qual, and you get four attempts at it, and I kept failing the qual, and
Much like pool comp.
yeah, same exact, yeah, right. 4 tries on that one too, and and I'm beating myself up, and I'm like, I typically never tried to like blame my gear on anything, and I was like, I'm looking at myself, being like, man, I suck. What is wrong with me? So I fail my 4th qualification. I don't get to go on to sniper school. Pretty bummed out. Have to go back to the platoon and tell your chief, yeah, sorry, chief, I didn't make it.
I can't hit shit, but
can't-
I got your back, bro.
I got your back, right? And so the next week we went up to Camp Pendleton for some sort of like pre-ULT. I can't remember what we were doing there, but we were dopening in our EOTechs on our M4s, and I'm sitting there trying to dope my EOTech in at 25 yards, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't group the damn thing, and I'm like, what is going on? And my senior chief, who's basically the highest enlisted in a platoon or in a troop, is standing there, and he's like, Bridges, you can be bad at a lot of things in the teams, but shooting's not one of them. And I'm like, oh man, new guy, just taking it on the chin, and it was so it was rough. And so he's like, well, let me see that gun, and he's like, he grabs it and he tries to hit it. He tries to group the gun as well, throw a group up there, and he couldn't do it either. He'd have like one in the middle and then one over to the right, one over to the left. He's like he calls the GM over, our gunny's mate, who comes and fixes your guns. He's like, there's something wrong with this gun, take a look at this thing. And so the gunner's mate comes back and he's like, hey man, is this the gun you shot your qual with at sniper school? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you have a loose barrel. And I'm like, nailed it. So
What's funny about that though is yesterday Andy and I we shot the first night, but we were out here, we were partying pretty hard, and we shot his bow, and we were partying pretty hard that whole day. When I kind of finalized your build, we came out and we shot, and there was a couple wild shots, and we kind of just wrote it off as
There's an arrow in a tree down there.
we wrote it off as
Maybe it's too late into the night to be shooting this bow right now.
Right.
Yeah, it's way too late to be out here just shooting lighted knocks. So the next day he comes out, he shoots a little bit, and he comes in, he's like super frustrated. He's like, I can't hit anything with this thing. And
This bow sucks.
And he had moved his scale like 3 different times. He was moving windage left and right, so I grabbed it and shot one. I'm like, that's pretty okay. Then all of a sudden I shot another one. It's like same thing, way off, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I'd pull back, and I notice that like as I draw back, the arrow rest is just kind of vibrating around, just moving around. So I grabbed the arrow rest, and I never tightened the 2 screws down to hold the launcher tail, the whale tail. I never tightened those down when I adjusted his left and right. So, I mean, I shot it through paper, bullet hole. We came out here, and that thing was just floating wherever the hell it wanted to.
Just chasing it with a pin.
Yeah, we're out here just burning the anodizing off these windage knobs, freaking moving everything around. And I just said, what an idiot. I never tightened this down. And it's like, oh, okay. So now let's get this thing sighted in. So, yeah, it was 2 of the exact same situations.
Right.
Yeah. I've been there. That's so frustrating.
You just feel like such an asshole. You're like
you want to blame the gear, but you're like, God, I can't.
do
I know
this.
it's me.
I know. I don't want to be that guy. It's like, yeah, it's my gear. It's a piece of crap. Get it out of here. It's like, no, there's something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I'm not fundamentally sound right now.
Yeah. If I could pick only one school to repeat, like could go back through the career and pick one, it would be sniper school.
Yeah.
I had so much fun in that course. It was months of shooting, just shooting. And we did M14 iron sights out to 1,000.
That's crazy.
And then we finally put glass on 300 Win Mags, and then we went to the stocking portion.
Right.
Did you get issued a ghillie suit?
Yeah, we do. You do in Scout. You do the ghillie suits and everything.
So I got issued.
Don't you have to build them?
I did.
Yeah.
So I went and sourced probably just over 2 tons of burlap strapping, and I remember sitting at my in-laws' house and for hours, like it probably weighed 50 pounds when I was done with it, because it was so just, I don't even know, it probably looked like Chewbacca.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Well,
I have one.
Dude, and then we did our stocking out at Nyland.
Yeah, that's
which Josh can attest. There's like a sage. There's like a sage bush, a little piece of a cactus, and a burned out like coyote van from running illegals across the border.
Yeah.
And the sun hits that burlap, and it just glows. So I immediately get busted.
Yeah.
I think before the stock even started, they're like, "You should just sit this one out." And like that night, it's just scissors. But I remember the first stock, you had to stock into, what was it? It was inside of 200 yards. I think it was 200 to 180. No rangefinder. You had to mil dot everything. So you're doing math. And I was stalking in on my first stock. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely it. So I take my shot. You shoot the blank, and then they walk a guy to within, I think, 10 yards of you. You shoot another blank, and if they still can't figure out where you are, I think that's a 10. It's an 8 if they find you after that. Yeah. So I take a shot. He's like, all right, cool. Go back to the truck. And then everybody's like, starts shooting. They were using my range. This was, again, like the very first stock. They were using my range as what they thought was appropriate. I was at like 320.
DQ the whole squad.
The entire class. Like one guy like took his time to go in and mill, and I was like, I'm sorry, guys. Because they literally, guys just saw me. They're like, oh, we're good here.
Yeah.
Screwed the entire class.
Oh, that's funny.
I did some, I was climbing in trees. I was taking shots from up in tree. Like, why not? I would get stuck. I would like, okay, there's this great dead space. I'm going to follow this ravine. And
right.
It's not a good idea to put your head down and just crawl in a ravine. Because at some point, they take some lefts and rights, and you like peek your head up and you're like,
where the hell am I?
Facing the complete wrong direction.
There would be people, because they sit at a table like this with binos, there would be people who would do that and would stalk past them, and you see them like, they had their little vegetation fan come up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like looking through my scope, and I see the table, and to the left of the table, 20 yards past it, is a guy coming up with a veg fan, looking in the wrong direction because the table's behind.
He's looking at you, and you're like,
no, he's just like, he loses track of where the table is, so the guy's just like,
where is it?
Just looking around, and then you see him like go back down. And then, like, 20 minutes later, they come up, like, 7 yards over, and they can't find the table. And then somebody shoots, and you see them turn around, and they go, oh, wow.
I'm right here. In Scout, we had a guy stalk the complete wrong direction. He just didn't realize, like,
this is how professional we are, Dudley.
You're going, hey, like, there's your guy, there's your target, that's where we're going. He must have just not been paying attention when the instructor's like, hey, there it is, right there, 3, 2, 1, go. He like literally like turns literally 180 degrees backwards and stalked, and like
Same thing.
So he failed because he missed the time, because finally once he realized that he wasn't stalking towards south or whatever, and he was supposed to be going north, he had to like stalk all the way back, and he like put himself in a really bad spot because now it was like slightly uphill.
Yeah, once you start to lose angle, then you're dicked.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Well, towards the end of the course,
that would have been fun to be one of the guys on the talkies, just being like, hey, everyone at the table,
look at
just
this dude.
I'm just gonna like,
look at this guy.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you're stalking and you're having conversations with the guy. It's much like what's the movie with it's a Tom Clancy book, Clear and Present Danger, where the people are running around with the radios. It's kind of like that, except there was none of that vegetation at all. There was a rock.
Right.
But you're sitting there like having a conversation. You're miserable. You're just pouring sweat, and the guy's just sitting there, and it's like, hey, man, am I going in the right direction? And they just look at you like, I don't know. But it towards the end of the course, when people were starting to get, what would be the best word for it? drastic measures were being taken because there's only 2 people with binoculars.
Yeah.
And if 2 people shoot at relatively the same time, they're looking through, the narrow field of view of a binocular. There would literally be people who would wait until other people shot and until both instructors were looking down at their binos, and they would just stand up and walk
Yeah.
without any concealment at all. Literally just like you're crawling along and you see a dude just like, hey, what's going on, man? and then he would just dive behind a bush.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's the best technique ever.
There
Because
it
he would
is.
just wait until everybody else was looking in the other direction, full back dive right down the middle of the course and plop down at like 200. Damn it.
Nailed it.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I remember I did an early season antelope hunt in a full ghillie suit one time.
It's so bad.
I don't think I've ever had duck butter like I did. Like, yeah.
What'd you describe the other day? An Appaloosa horse under full saddle?
Yeah, yeah.
And your
That's the
skydiving
type
outfit?
of yeah. Oh yeah, that was pretty close. Like, I had a black freaking onesie on that was way too small, and they bumped us because there was several teams there doing runs, so they bumped us for 2.5 hours, and I didn't want to like unzip it because it was so tight on my shoulders that I couldn't get it off when I would unzip it, and everyone would have to help like pull it off my triceps. So I'm just sitting there just cooking, and I finally just told them
Was it like a shark skin? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it was just a student jumpsuit, black and red one.
Oh, for jumping.
Yeah, Trade It was
Oh,
down there
gotcha.
doing like refresher jumps. There's 20 dudes with MT2Xs just sitting in the sun for an hour, just like
They were just freaking like kids at the class assembly. They were all just sitting fully geared up, just waiting their line. It's like, man, that's miserable.
and there was shade 10 yards to their left, but they just sat there,
Yeah.
full tractor
no.
beam stare, just
You can't go in that shade. You need to sit
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah, that was
man.
a classic. No, but I told Andy, I said, dude, I'm lathered up worse than an Appaloosa horse in full saddle right now. Like, there's like foam gonna start just coming out my neck path.
Oh man, it's been hot in San Diego.
it was,
was
triple
smoking.
digits down. And
Yeah.
at the DZ too.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it was,
way east Chula Vista.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's hot out there.
It was
got
pretty
a-
cool because I flew over. So we were flying over where I used to train. Like sometimes I'd go to the training center for archery.
Oh, okay.
So it's kinda fun.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
training
the
center.
Olympic Training
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah, it was really fun to actually see that as we were like bombing out. It was
Right.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was fun to learn
Yeah.
something new
I actually
over the top of where I learned something years ago.
I mountain bike around that lake right there. I like park right across
Otay
the street.
Reservoir?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I park right across from the training center. Yeah.
That would be
It's a fun little bike.
that'd be a fun ride.
Yeah.
I've jumped into that training center. That's where the Navy parachute team practices their demonstration jumps.
Oh, really?
There's a BMX. I mean, there's all sorts of different
Yeah.
fields there, and you start because it's so close to the drop zone. The pilot literally just takes off and flies straight and like get out. So you bomb out at
Yeah.
like 3,000 feet over. But I've jumped in there quite a few times, and I kick myself now. Wasn't shooting a bow at all, but I'd always would look down and see the huge outdoor archery targets.
Yeah.
I lived. Did you ever come over to our house?
No.
Yeah, I lived 5 minutes from there.
That's
I would have had a yearly membership there for sure.
I don't know.
Anybody can go?
Yeah, you can buy a membership there. I was looking it up online.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They built a big center now, like the one in Salt Lake.
Yeah, they said they have a 70-meter indoor.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
Salt Lake Center archery place we went. Oh my God.
Ridiculous.
super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, I'll be curious to see how much you take after this.
Oh yeah. I'm going pro. You know, we said it earlier.
Okay.
I'm going pro.
Going pro.
Yeah.
No, I think you're gonna learn to appreciate being accurate because you've
Right.
shot. You shoot trad bows or you've shot trad bows a little bit,
A little bit.
and so I told you, I'm like, yeah, that's fun, but
But it
it's
takes an hour to hit something.
yeah, it's like what's fun about it is that one time a day we were like, hey everyone, did you see I got it? Everyone,
Yeah.
it's in the 12.
Look at it. I got it.
While you guys are down here,
Yeah.
I've got 4 arrows back here in the grass. Can you help me? Like that's how my instinctive archery abilities go. No,
Yeah.
I think once you're able to just drive tacks with something, it's like okay. Then your marksmanship instincts come out, and you're like I like just being super accurate. And then when you're not, obviously it's like a check. What am I doing wrong? And
Right.
I think for all of our personalities, that's a good identifier, and it's fun to know when you're slightly off course, because then you make corrections to get back on. And it's almost like you accomplished a goal. It might not be a big goal, but
I'd use the word fun
Yeah.
to recognize that you're off course. It's helpful to be able to recognize
Yeah.
it, but I don't know if the journey is necessarily fun.
it's important, but it's a character builder too.
Yeah.
I think when people in life dodge those experiences, they're cutting themselves short of something that would really change who they are as a human.
Right.
I think like you talked about in the very beginning with what your goal was coming, and then obviously you went through several of the things where you're like, yeah, that's going to be, if this comes up, that's the end. I mean, when you got through it, you were probably like, frickin' yes, this is like a huge, and people on the outside might, they might just be looking at, where's Josh at in position on the leaderboard. But those are the things that in a few years, no one's going to remember.
Right.
That's what I say about trophies that I have in there. I'm like, you could be 2 weeks later and people are like, who won the Triple Crown last week?
Right.
And it's like, okay, I'm literally laying everything I have down for something that doesn't mean anything to anybody. If it means something to me, that's a different subject.
Right.
But everyone just, like, trophies and medals, they just tarnish.
Yeah.
They're just, all of them are in there and they're black. They're tarnished. And it's like, if there's certain ones that I keep out because it's like, I had a big goal at this one and I remember what they all are. And it's like, I made a big step as a competitor at this. And I remember what some of those things were, some of the first times where I beat a certain guy, or, the first tournament where I went and made 40 shots without feeling any like target anticipation. Like, those are big hurdles that are, personal goals. If you can come away with things like that from competition, you'll continually progress. But if you're just only focusing on the outcome all the time, some people just set themselves up for like real disappointment.
Right.
Because there's, in any field, CrossFit's a really good example, and I'm a poor example to explain it, but it looks like there's just ruthless wolves. I mean, these people are animals out there, and
Well, you can't beat somebody who started when they were 14.
Right.
Like, if
yeah.
they have 10 years under their belt and they're only in their early 20s, like
Right.
as a mid-30s, you're done.
Yeah.
Like,
It's an interesting thing for sure. CrossFit. If you don't like you're going into what you were just talking about, how if you always are just thinking about the outcome, it's like you can stand on top of the podium for like a minute,
Yep.
right? And then if that's what your only goal is you're never gonna get there anyways, because I just enjoy doing CrossFit. I love going into a gym every single day and testing myself.
Yep.
And maybe not testing myself like every single day, like not testing it in a way of like I'm testing a workout or whatever, but like pushing myself to the limits that I don't even think I'm capable of doing.
Yeah.
you enjoyed doing that before the Navy, too,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I did. I've been doing CrossFit before there was a game, before it was a sport. I did it to get ready for the Navy.
Yeah.
I remember him as a student, like not well. We saw it's tough because you saw hundreds of students in the 18 months that I was there. Probably 500-600 students.
Yeah.
But like I would go out there and do the workouts with them. Some of the instructors probably didn't enjoy that I would make them come out and participate. But my theory was like, if you're going to tell them to do something, I didn't do everything I told you to do.
right.
But sometimes you just need to drink coffee and have a garden hose.
Exactly.
But, I mean, he would just annihilate the workouts. And I remember like, God damn, man, you little short bastard.
Now it's not that way anymore. It's not. The short guys aren't the best at like when CrossFit first came out, it seemed to have a huge biases towards like shorter people. Like,
The weights were lighter.
Yeah, the weights were lighter, so we're having smaller ranges of motions, and now it's like, I don't know, it's got to a point where I don't feel there's an advantage either way, like tall, short,
Which they've probably molded it to
Yeah.
be that way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what the games competition is about. I mean, Josh would probably agree, but there's a huge, I use the methodology still, but there's a huge misunderstanding between the games competition that Josh does and the actual methodology behind the program.
Right.
If you were to put somebody on a training protocol like Josh or the other games athletes who are competing in that, discipline, you would destroy them. And it's
Yeah.
actually the exact opposite of what the actual CrossFit methodology is. It's a workout a day. It should take no more than an hour. That's your warm-up, your cool-down. I mean, occasionally it'll go longer, but really I always tell people it should be about, in 1 hour, make the 23 hours of your life better outside of the gym.
Right.
Whereas
That's a good way to put it.
yeah,
I
but
like that.
but a lot of people, because the games is so publicized,
Yeah.
they confuse what that people like Josh are doing with the methodology, and it couldn't be farther from the truth.
No, like if you just look at the older CrossFits, the older CrossFit Games athletes that are like, like now starting to hit their 30s and like just look at their bodies. It's like any professional athlete.
Yeah.
Like you do the same repetitions, like you were talking about with your shoulders.
Yeah.
If you do the same thing over and over again, you're gonna have wear and tear on your body. Like
It's almost like watching you get out of the car yesterday.
yeah, that's not a pretty sight.
It's like, Dudley, do you have a walker?
right?
Or a cane?
Yeah. But
Josh got down to his bedroom downstairs, and I said, "Hey, man, we were trying to hook up the automatic chair to go up, like where you sit and just thumb button up there." I'm like, we couldn't get it installed.
A life alert would have been another solid
Yeah.
call. Like, Josh, we have you downstairs. If you need assistance, just
Help,
blow,
I'm
the,
falling and I can't get
blow,
up.
this, blow this whistle, and we will come get
I'm
you.
laying on the floor. No, yeah, but so Games athletes, yeah, we're training for a specific thing, right? It's not what any normal person who just wants to be fit for life should ever do. Like there's things that we test, like pistols, like I don't know, the handstand push-ups.
Yeah.
Those are things that I probably would never tell someone who's not competing to do.
Yep.
Especially a pistol, I think.
Right, yeah.
Because
It's
people.
What is a pistol? Can you
One
show me quick?
Can you show us your left leg?
Nope.
It's a one-legged
Sure
squat.
can't.
Oh,
Yeah.
do they call it that because you're extended?
Yeah.
But most people, when they start, can't extend their leg out like that, and you see them, they're really far up on their toe. The angles of their. But
Bad. Just pure shearing.
yeah.
But
People will see it in the games, and they'll try it in their garage, and like, oh,
because it
this-
looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is terrible. It hurts. I'm like, well, yeah, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
If I take a Sharpie pen and draw on my eyeball, yeah, it's gonna hurt. That doesn't mean the Sharpie pen is messed up. It means you don't know how to use it.
Right. Yeah. And so like there's just things you'll see people doing that, and it's like you don't need to do that. Like there's
Yeah.
so many other ways for what you're trying to do. You're trying to do a one-legged squat, which I agree. Like you should be able to stand up on one leg, but there's different ways to train it with less possibility
Potential,
of injury.
yeah.
Yeah.
Potential of injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're getting tested on a certain thing. We signed up for it, so we have to train it, but it doesn't mean everyone does.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it too. And modifying is something people should not be scared of, especially in the archery world. I modify almost all my lifting to make sure that I don't injure things that are my sport specific. So, I'm really big into, when you do a push-up, you don't have to do it to where, your palms are, your fingers are facing straight forward. Bring them in just a little bit and change your elbow position to where you're not feeling impingement on your shoulders.
Right.
Even with a pull-up, if I go in and I'm doing pull-ups, I do like a neutral grip. I have that rogue attachment where I can do more of a neutral grip, like a hammer fist style position for my pull-ups, because for me, when I put palms forward, I put a lot more pressure on my bicep tendon, as I'm coming to the top when my palms are facing forward. And with archery, thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds a day, I'm pulling with that same motion anyway, and it's just repetitive stress.
Right.
To where if that's your field of sport, try to modify just a little bit to where, to where you're not necessarily impacting yourself that way, and you're going to be able to do what you like a lot longer. People need to recognize that. When people ask me about CrossFit and, well, what do you think of that? I'm like, I would honestly never do most of those things.
Yeah.
I would rather have a weighted ruck. I like kettlebells because it's single arm movements, and I can, because my thing is one of my sides is wore out more than the others.
Right.
So when I'm trying to do barbell movements, one side is wanting to go and one side saying, I've got some issues here.
Hold up, bro.
Yeah, hold up. So I mean, being able, you want to be balanced, but in the same sense, you do need to modify if you do have injuries, because if you're just trying to power through for the sake of being a weekend warrior,
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
You're not actually doing why you're doing it. You're doing it to stay healthy and to stay fit. And when you're powering through pain, like you're obviously your body's gonna compensate. Your body's an amazing thing. What it will do, it'll compensate for anything, any sort of injury. And then so what you're gonna do when you're compensating, you're gonna create an injury somewhere else.
Yep.
So not only is that gonna be injured, but then so like that's with my left knee. My left knee's been pretty messed up for a long time. And I've definitely just kind of pushed through it because it is my, my craft.
Job.
Right, it's my job. And so, and it's definitely caused some issues with my right knee to where like I know that when I go down in a squat, I'll sometimes like my hips will shift, and then I let that right knee just dive a little forward more than it should, and now I have a little bit of pain in the patella.
Yeah.
When I owned a CrossFit gym, talking about modification, like I would program, write a workout, and post that, and then actually go the next day, because I would post it the night before, go the next day, and like 90% of it was going and talking to each individual and like, okay, this is what the workout is, but you can't do that because A, you just started, or B, you're working around something, and then modifying every single thing to fit people's individual body type or issues. The modification is huge.
Yeah.
People see these workouts and they're like, I got to do it just like that. I'm like, you shouldn't.
You don't have to.
I don't recommend that you do. I mean, I'm going to get a camera, and if you're going to go for that, we're going to watch for sure. But yeah, people.
It's not a good thing.
We talked about that too last podcast.
The curse of the novice. They do want to skip all the stuff that's fundamental, and they want to go to the sexy stuff.
Yeah, Josh is getting
hard
blasted.
You got to tell Dudley about your favorite exercise in Buds.
Oh, my favorite. I was telling Tosh on the ride here.
Apparently, they were telling Bud stories.
Yeah, we were telling some Bud stories from Andy because they're amazing. If you want to get in really good shape, you go to Bud's, right? Because that's where it's at. So Andy would come out. I think, did I tell this on your podcast?
I don't think so.
I can't remember, but anyway, so Andy would walk out and he'd be like, instructor Stump. He would be
Hoo-yah, instructor.
Hoo-yah, instructor Stump. And so he'd walk out and be like, this beatdown is going to be epic. It will not be over quickly. And he said it with such like a grin on his face to where you almost appreciated it, because he wasn't this like yelling in your face, like calling you an idiot, like making you feel like a big turd. He was just like, you guys messed up.
I never yelled once in 18 months.
And now you're going to pay. And it's going to be great. It's going to be epic. He always used the word epic. It's going to be epic. And I loved it.
So I don't think the other people in the class
did.
some
people probably did. And I don't know why I appreciated it. I just did. I also didn't. Either way, if you did the way Andy did, or if you yelled at me, like, I appreciate it. I was actually telling this to Tosh yesterday where, like, I appreciate it when my wrestling coach in high school was a phenomenal coach, and he would turn purple yelling at you. I'm not even kidding. Like his skin would turn purple. I saw him like pick up a soda machine and like throw it like 3 feet, and I'm like, I love like his passion though. Like he cares so much about what I'm doing that he's like, he looks like this, and I appreciated it. So it wasn't like didn't get offended by it. I'm like, he cares so much that he's turning purple yelling at me.
I never threw a Coke machine. I just had them fill up their mask with seawater.
So Andy would walk out and he'd be like, all right, boys, get your masks, get your whatever we needed.
Usually a weight belt too, I think.
Yeah, typically always a weight belt.
Sometimes twin 80s, but then I got in trouble for that.
Those.
Apparently you can't make people do
Josh is just closing his eyes, shaking his head like
thinking, like going
I had the
back.
class.
You just had a flashback right there. You
640-pound yoke, please. Let's put twin 80s on your back.
Twin 80-cylinder scuba tanks with weight belt on and a dive mask full of water. I had them doing berm sprints. I got in trouble for that.
So we go out to the berm with our mask and our weight belt, and he's like, now go fill your mask up with water and then put it on. And get a mouthful of water, and then you had one guy lay on their back on the bottom of the berm, the little sand hill, and then that guy had to reach up and wrap his arms around a guy's neck, and then the guy would basically be on top of him, like on all fours, and he'd have to bear crawl, dragging that guy up the sand berm.
Soft sand berm.
And soft sand. And so, like, your neck at the end of it felt like, literally felt like you were carrying 700 pounds. It was just awful. Like your neck. I remember my neck being sore for like 5 days after that, being like you couldn't barely lift your head up. You just lay in the shower and like you'd have to like lay your head against the wall, like and then like pour shampoo on it and like rub it on the wall because you didn't want to lift it up. And then after you got to the top of the berm, you had to come back down and get in line, and then Andy would walk by, and you had to like spit water out. And if you didn't have water in your mouth, you had to do it again.
The entire class had to do it again.
That was one I'll never. I'll remember that to the day I die, like yesterday. Like it's so vivid. Oh man.
It's funny how coaches can impact differently. I had one football coach that would grab my face mask, and he would grab it with his thumb and his middle finger, ring finger, pinky, and he would pull me in with that, and then his index finger was free, and he would use the leverage of the other ones to just push his index finger into my one eyeball. And he'd be like, "Are you looking at me?" And I mean, he would want all the attention of one eye, and he's just squeezing hard, and you're just like, "Yes, sir." And he would just get right in there and just start spitting, and there was nowhere you were going. I mean, he would just be yelling at you. And then I had another football coach that, football was my thing. I mean, probably 2 weeks of the summer I would be at home. Other than that, I was at football camps everywhere in the country.
Right.
And so
I can't believe it. You played football? What are you, 6'8"?
Yeah.
7'2".
Yeah, 7'2".
I was a small wingback is what I was going for, but I failed. No, but I had this my one coach, I remember my senior year, we were all out at practice. It was like during 3-a-days, and I actually wasn't bad then because I wore my helmet all through the summer. But I remember, your neck does get sore, like having shoulder pads on the first time and stuff. And we were out there, and the rest of the team was just dicking off. Like, everybody was dicking off. And he goes, "All right, it's obvious you guys aren't absorbing anything here." He's like, "I'm not sure why you're not focused." And he's like, I don't really know what's going on. He goes, "But why don't you guys just call it a day?" And everyone's just like, "Oh, okay." Freaking people are going, and I'm like,
day off.
I'm like, because I'm quarterback, I was always responsible for, all the balls, and then like I was always responsible to be there early, warm up, or like don't use practice time to warm up your arm, right? So I'm like rounding up some balls, and I throw all these balls in my back. And it was our first day in full gear. And as I'm walking away, he's like, "Hey, Dudley." I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "So practice isn't over for you." He goes, he goes, "Just so you know," he's like, "it's your responsibility to make sure these guys are paying attention." And he's like, "So I want to backstop." Like, where we practice football was in the middle of all the baseball fields, so every baseball, like a lap around all the backstops was a backstop. And he goes, "I want a backstop for every minute that we're shutting down early."
Oh.
And he said, "And you need to know it will be this way all year." So I'm just like looking, and it's like 48 minutes.
Oh.
This was actually, thinking back, this was at the midday practice. It was like at the real hot one. Everyone just people are just murked. They're so hot, and our water, like, I don't know if it came right out of like a sulfur pond or something, but like you'd run up to that PVC pipe with all the holes, and you just be plugging your nose.
Oh God!
Just getting in there and like, please, like, you knew that he would wait until it was just turning cold, and then he'd blow the whistle for everyone to come back. Like, you knew you had about a minute to drink the really hot, like PVC infested stuff. And I remember,
super healthy.
Yeah, I remember we
Sounds
were just struggling that day, and he looked and he's like, "Yeah, I think it was like 47," and I'm like, "All right, coach," and I said, "It won't happen again," and I just started running, and he waited about like 10 minutes, and I was just like running, and he goes, "Make sure you keep your gear on." I'm like, "All right," and as I was running, I started doing the math of like, okay, these last 10 took me this long. And I'm like, I literally got done about 10 minutes before the third practice. Like everyone was like showing up, like coming out,
Right.
and I'm out there just like limping along. And he came out and he goes, "Hey Dudley, make sure you got your arm warmed up before practice starts." And I remember I got everybody together and I'm like, "Listen, we will not.
I will kill all of you.
Yeah, we are not going to shut down practice early ever again.
I will kill you."
Yeah, this is not going to happen. But he was like the quiet type, but got his point across.
Right.
The other guy was not the quiet type, but also got his point across.
Right.
But, when they do it when you know that there's reason for it, well, the right person accepts it. I shouldn't say the wrong person, but certain people aren't acclimated to that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
certain people cannot. I actually fed off that.
Yeah.
But man, there were other people, and that's part of being a good coach, and it's important for me to recognize. I can recognize it a little bit better with archery students, but some I have to get on them and just be like, you're shooting like dog shit today. And I'm not, and I've just told people I'm not going to sit here and watch it because I think I'm going to catch something and you're so bad right now. And they'll just be like, and I mean, they work through it. But some people, you just have to be like, hey, this was so good. Like that one part was so, you have to find the one thing that's like positive and then just key in on that. Whereas some people, you can dig into it's like, well, this is really what they're actually not good at, and this is what I want to talk about, and feel them out. And if they can accept it, then some people need that. Like
Right.
that's a push for them to know that they're bad at something.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure. I completely agree. There's definitely like a great coach can recognize how an athlete responds to certain things.
Yep.
And like
Determine which cues to use.
yeah, right. Like exactly, and that's like in buds. It's great. You have the instructors like Andy, then you have the instructors that literally just scream and yell the whole time, and then you have the guys that are in between that they can switch, they can turn a switch and then become the screamer if they need to, or they can be calm and quiet.
I think the middle one's probably more effective. Do you?
Oh, yeah,
do you
for
think
sure.
so?
I mean, for me, like I said, I don't mind getting screamed at and yelled at. Like if
Yeah.
someone has enough passion to like put into that they care that much that they're going to scream, then that's fine. As long as it's done with a purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
I was
not-
just gonna say.
And not just white noise, because
Yeah.
too much screaming becomes white noise where you don't even listen to it and you're like, this guy's just an asshole.
Yeah.
That's why I never went that route, because I remember the instructors I had that would yell. I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like,
Right, nor do I care.
yeah, I heard you told me to do something, and I'm just gonna like tag along with the class
Yeah.
because I have to. But I really would like it if you'd shut your face.
Right, right. Because especially in buds, you get yelled at all the time. It's like you can't do anything right, and I think that's the process that they're like trying to,
Yeah.
Well, in the end, technically you're green. You probably can't do anything right,
Right.
according to
Yeah.
your
Exactly,
task.
yeah.
I mean, according to what, like, because you and Jocko both said, you're like, oh my God, if I would, like, looking back at myself, like, going on my first few deployments, you
Oh,
were
dude.
like,
I was so dangerous to myself and everybody around me. Like
I got
pre
s-
9/11, like
I got sent on deployment straight out of SQT. Like we didn't even do a workup. Like you didn't.
but they
even-
probably managed your experience level and put you.
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Like we were. I mean, I was a turret gunner.
yeah.
And we didn't even do very much.
on a
but it-
Prius, or?
Yeah, right. I wish. That thing. Jesus.
Yeah.
Andy's got a video of a Gatling gun on
In
the
a Prius.
in a Prius,
Strong.
and the parking brake does not hold it when they thunder
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But like I mean that was just insane. I felt like I remember like literally going out on that first like we were just doing recons maybe we did a couple DAs. I can't remember, but you didn't even. We were just in the trucks.
Yeah.
But it was like. We hadn't gone through any mobility because in SQT you don't do that kind of
No,
stuff.
you were just
You know,
basically
you were-
coming through the filter.
Like you were, I'm like, I look back at it, I'm like, man, I didn't. Like, I still don't know. I have such little experience that compared to so many other SEALs or military guys out there. Like, my experiences were so like even Tosh was like, I was in country for I want to say he said 8 years. 8 years. I'm like that was his actual deployment time. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm like, I was in the military for 8.5 years. Like, he was overseas for 8 years. It's incredible to hear, like, you know, that kind of, like, story. So I'm, like, green. I'm still green.
Yeah.
I think you always feel that way. My very first platoon, for about 6 months, my platoon chief, who is the senior enlisted guy in the platoon, was the first BUDS instructor that I ever encountered. Who I actually think I've had rhabdo, but talking about different ways to motivate people, the scariest dude ever. So he had his jaw wired shut, and he was yelling at us through a wired shut jaw. And his young daughter was walking. This is literally my first day in Greens in PTRR, which is I think they call it 4th phase now. And I think he just didn't have any Percocet or Vicodin. He was just pissed, and his daughter was walking around, and he hammered us so bad that I couldn't walk for a week. Like, I think I had rhabdo, and 2 people got up. It was over at 618. I don't know what we were doing over there. 2 people got up and just ran towards the bell, which is down the road. He's like, get your ass back here. And they're just like, literally just like, where's the bell? This is day 1. And then I get through that whole process, know nothing, and I go check into my first platoon. He's sitting there, and I was like, mother of God.
Was his jaw still wired shut?
No, he was just utterly terrifying, though. And I'm like, okay. But again, things you'll never forget. Like, he had a unique style. His was definitely like, I'm going to grind your face up and eat it type style. But I remember doing flutter kicks for over an hour, and his little young daughter was just sitting there. I'm like, this is super weird. Is this what BUDS is like? 'Cause I'm definitely not going to make it if this is what every day is like.
This is awkward. That's so funny.
I like the psychology to that.
Yeah. Takes all types.
Yeah.
Did I have you for pool comp?
Yeah. I was telling.
Did you pass? You definitely did.
I definitely did not pass.
There's no way you passed.
Andy was brutal.
I had a very fair test, and I gave the same test every time. But if you passed it, you earned it.
Yeah, it was. I remember when I got Andy, I was like, "Fuck," you know, like, I was like, my head goes down. I was like, because you kind of know which instructors you want, and like everyone's a little different, and like you see the guys. This guy, every single guy goes in is passing. This guy, every single guy goes in is failing, and you're like, God damn it. so I get Andy on my. I want to say you were my second one, and he made some knots that were really incredibly hard to get. Like, so for what pool comp is you go down and you got your 2080s on your back, and you have mask on and your mouthpiece in, and you have to crawl along the bottom of it like a 9-foot pool.
Well, you have your mask on for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds. And then the instructors come down and basically do surf hits. And really what it is to make sure that you can stay calm under pressure, right? In a very stressful scenario. And then you have to go through.
Are you blacked out?
No, no, you're not blacked out.
On the actual, there's portions of the week leading up to it is called pool week, and you do individual. Like, the first thing you do is with a regular mask, nobody messing with you. You take all your stuff off.
Yeah.
You put it on.
Yeah.
And then if you pass that, you do blacked out mask, and then 2 people go down with only 1 set of gear, and you gear exchange back and forth. Then blacked out mask, and all of the skills you learn along the way
lead into
terminate in pool competency is what it is short for. And you start with all your stuff on, and then it's just,
Yeah, it's like it's.
My description of it might be different than Josh's.
I didn't have to be. I was never an instructor for this course, so yeah, I'm sure Andy's perspective is a lot better and different than mine. But, so for me, you're crawling along the bottom, and then an instructor comes down, hits you, takes your mouthpiece out, removes your air source, could even turn it off, and then you have to go through a procedure over and over again, and they'll keep coming down like mid procedure and hitting you over and over, and for about, I'm gonna guess, is it like 20 minutes?
20-minute time cap.
That's what I figured it was about 20 minutes.
You don't have to do 20 minutes. You just have. You can be done in 15 if you want, but you have up to 20 minutes as the instructor. Yeah,
and so, and then what they'll do finally is, so you'll have to like trace your air tubes, put your mouthpiece in, trace your chest straps and waist straps, and then like make sure your air source is on, and then they'll come down and hit you again. You have to keep basically repeating it without basically without much air, because sometimes they would hit you on an exhale, right? And so then you have to and then they'll tie your mouthpiece in knots, and so you're trying to get these knots out without air, under the water, and staying calm all in the process of it, and hoping that you don't get hit again, and And so Andy would make these knots with his tube, and I don't even think I was down there for that long. I just remember like he had this one knot to where I couldn't get it out, but I could get a little bit of air if I like cranked my neck all the way to the left and like I don't even know. I kind of pushed the airpiece into my mouth, and
It was my favorite.
and
I
it
did
was
it to everybody.
It was awful, and I was like I couldn't get any air, and then he hit me again, and I was like. I couldn't. It was bad.
So there's procedures. Some knots you can take the tanks off your back. If you cannot establish a viable air source, you can take your tank off. But that knot that he's talking about, I tied it the same way every time. And you had to have your head jacked so far to the left. And you could fit your mouthpiece in. It would allow you to inhale, but you couldn't exhale.
Yeah,
and that freaked a lot of people out.
That's what it was, yes.
So you can inhale, but they try to blow back into the hose, and it almost triggers like a choking mechanism when all you really need to do is exhale out of your nose.
Yeah.
But your head is so jacked to the right or to the left. And then, of course, it's really easy to tell how to time it on an exhale because the bubbles are escaping, and I'm watching from my snorkel floating. I'm like, and
now.
let's do this.
Yeah. And now. And then it's like, and then it's fail. You know, it's just like,
So
all
if they
right.
take their tanks off in that moment, they fail the test right there.
Yeah.
And the test has nothing to do with diving and everything to do with being able to control panic, which is
Yeah.
why I took it so seriously, because if you pass that test, your odds are like 98th, 99th percentile that you'll become a SEAL. Like that's
Yeah.
the last big test gate. And
Yeah. And I remember, the thing that was cool about Andy too is he actually did say, I remember like coming up and he'd be like, "Don't worry, Bridge, you'll pass it." Like I can't remember why he said something. He gave me some sort of like motivation where it was like, "Hey, you failed, but like you remained calm in a situation where you probably shouldn't have. But yeah, I messed up a procedure of some sort or something like that." And so he's like, "You'll be fine."
He at least dropped you a little nugget.
Yeah. So it was good. And then I failed the next one because I gamed it because I thought it'd been 20 minutes, and I thought they had then what was called the whammy knot at the end.
a knot you cannot get out.
A knot you can't get out, and so you have to request
FSA.
FSA, and which is what is it? Stand
Free swimmer ascent.
Free swimmer ascent. And so they make you go down, kiss the bottom of the pool, and then like you have to be blowing out constantly the whole way up because you're breathing on compressed air, so that you're something with like a lung.
AGE.
Yeah, AGE.
Yeah.
So
Mind you,
yeah.
kiss the deck and exhale, and you have to have bubbles coming out the whole time. Now, I would administer the whammy knot on an exhale.
Yeah.
When they're already almost out, or I actually was generally pretty generous. I would come down and I would tap their mouthpiece to let them know I was about to take their mouthpiece, unless
Yeah.
the student started getting squirrely, then it's like, you don't get that warning anymore.
All right.
But I would tap them, they get a big breath, and they work the whammy knot. Like, they're holding their breath probably for 60 to 90 seconds underwater.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they have to request the FSA by putting their thumb out. You come down, you tap them on the head. They have to take all the stuff off properly, kiss the ground, and then my absolute favorite was to just get a hold of their T-shirt and start going to the surface, but just go just so slow that you're barely rising because you see them, they're like
Yeah. Like
trying to
trying
get bubbles.
get,
And I would just sit there and look at them and be like, we got 7 more feet to go. You better keep
Yeah.
exhaling.
Yeah.
And then just maybe stall out, like right as their lips are like 6 inches under the surface, and they're just like,
What a good dude.
and then they come out and they just like breached whale noises.
So
You gotta have some
I
fun.
couldn't
Oh,
imagine.
of course.
how
Yeah, when
hard-
you're an instructor, yeah, you have to. Oh my gosh, when I was an instructor at CQC.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for the Bud students. It was for when you're in the platoons. But we would play the repeater game, and so one instructor would walk up and be like, listen, Andy, you really, if you take your time a little bit more and put your gun on safe, blah blah, and then the next instructor would be like, Andy, if you, and he'd like walk up and he'd like say the exact same thing, and the guy would just be like looking at him like, what the fuck is that? What is happening right now?
Like in Super
Yeah,
Troopers.
yeah. We definitely
Most
got
of the SEAL teams is basically just bad movie quotes. I mean, that's all.
Yeah.
It's references to
Right.
movies.
He's like, over here, you kind of took a left step and you should have been taking a right, and bring your gun up a different way, and that you're like, yeah, hey man, come over here for a second. Yeah, so you could have taken the left step here and brought your gun up a little. And he'd just be looking at me like, am I messed up right now?
Yeah.
Like, is this happening again? It was fun. We played a lot of games like that. That was good times.
I brought my father-in-law. There's observation windows in the pool. I brought my father-in-law. He wanted to come see it one day, and I think he was scheduled to be there for a couple hours. He wanted to leave after like an hour. He was visibly shaken watching the pool comp test. Like he came out of it like just sweating. He's like, I can't watch it anymore. He's like, I got myself holding my breath. When they were holding their breath, I almost passed out watching them through the window.
Yeah. Oh, so on my third test after Andy's test, I gamed it. I gamed the test, and I was like, it's been 20 minutes. This is the whammy knot. Like I know it is. And so I'm back there, and I'm like pretending like I'm ripping on these hose, and I'm not pulling it at all. And I'm just like, whoa, like I got this.
I can't get it.
And so I request my FSA or FSA, and he comes down and he punches me to the ground and comes up and comes up to the top. He's like, so you think you passed, Bridges? He's like, you think you did good?
Hoo-yah, instructor,
like,
whatever.
Hoo-yah. I think it was a chief or something. He's like he grabs my 2080s and he just literally grabs the air tubes and just like kind of like that and pops it right out and it's like, nah, man. He's like, that wasn't the whammy knot. Fail. So I came down to my fourth try and I was like, man,
which is do or die. You fail the fourth try,
yeah,
and
you get one roll. So I would have got to go back, but I had to start at second phase all over again. But on my fourth one, I was like, this is not happening. And so what happened was,
you see people go dark on their fourth try.
Yeah, dark try. I was like, I'll drown. I don't even care.
You look at him in the eyes, and you're like, oh no. Yeah. Let's get the corpsman on standby,
yeah,
please.
Right.
Because my man is like, you'll see it. Like they can't get the knot out, but they know. Like you tie that knot on the one. Same thing with Josh, and it's you see him, and you're like, because you can tell when somebody is comfortable, and you be looking at him like, oh no, he can't breathe, but he knows that this knot. He should be able to.
Yeah. And
he knows if he takes the tank off, he's going to fail. So they won't take it off. And you just see him. It starts slow, and then it gets a little spazzy. And then the indication that it's going bad is they reach up and they put their foot on the ground because they're about to ballistic missile submarine. And then so you're down there and you're like sweeping their leg, and you just see guys. I could tell you to within 2 seconds to when somebody's going to pass out because they start the chicken egg. They're like, and you're fine. But that's not when you're about to pass out.
No.
It's when the bubbles start escaping at the end of that. They'll be like, and a little bubble. You're like, oh, God. You're like, Corman, I'm bringing one up. And you just, it was, but I took the fourth test very seriously because of the consequences. But I had guys, you'd pull them up and they'd still have their tanks on their back and grown men, just tears, like this is all I've ever wanted to do. And you got to keep your stuff together and be like, okay, go check in as a failure. Like they're like, this is my lifelong dream, and like I know it was mine too, but the difference is I passed. So
so my last one, it was kind of interesting, and so I was in my head. I was like, I'm not gonna game it again. Like I'm just gonna do it.
Follow
follow
protocol. Yeah,
that's all you have to do.
So this time we get to the whammy knot, and I'm like. I didn't think it was. I'm like, this isn't the whammy knot. So like I'm holding my breath and I'm rubbernecking hard. I'm like,
this is the danger of the fourth try.
And I'm ripping at. I'm like, I was like, I'm gonna get this knot out. I know I can. And I think the instructor like thought that I would recognize it, and he came down and was like right above me, waiting for me to request FSA. And so I think he ran out of breath. Because he basically, before I requested FSA, he grabs me, kisses the ground, and we start to go up. And I'm like, what the hell? I failed.
Yeah.
I failed. And he's like, God damn it, Bridges. He's like, what were you doing? He's like, he's like, call your mom. You passed. Like because I think like I was there. I don't know what if I don't think I did anything wrong. And so he just he ran out of breath before I requested the FSA. And so it was. I was like, oh, thank God. Because I was like, I was going to pass out. I wouldn't even care.
Yeah. Teaching people in the air, skydiving, I would say is probably the hardest learning environment, but that water scenario was probably the second. Yeah. Just because you had to induce panic and stress, but you had to control it at the same time, and the student could actually really hurt themselves if they held their breath and they pushed up to the surface.
Yeah. You think the air is the fear of heights is equal as a stress factor? You think it's more of a stress factor than water?
I think in skydiving, it can get out of control faster. Like some of those videos that I showed you of people in a, Top Gun backspin flying. Like that can't happen underwater. And there's only 9 feet of separation. And I can be there. And most of the time, Like he's saying that it's pattern recognition. You're like, okay, this guy's about to do this. I'm going to take a deep breath because he's going to request an FSA, and I'm going to be right there. Worst case scenario, you have to porpoise up real fast, get a breath, and come down. Some of the skydiving stuff, it can go so bad so fast.
Right.
And if people flatten out, and they extend their flight surfaces, most instructors can't catch you.
Yeah.
Whereas in the water, I mean, realistically, it's really tough to teach because you can't communicate, but it's more controlled because the viscosity of the water makes them move slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you jump out of a plane, you're dead, basically.
Until you save your own life.
Until you save your own life.
Yeah.
Right? You just committed suicide.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
I mean, yeah.
I sure had fun.
remember
I haven't
one of the
even done a
jumping
podcast talking about that yet.
Oh, that's.
We've got to get on that subject for this one.
Send it.
I haven't even recapped.
Let's hear from your perspective, and then
from my perspective.
What did you think of the wind tunnel compared to actually jumping? Did you go to the wind tunnel?
we did. He has like 25 minutes in the tunnel.
That's awesome.
I think the tunnel was I think it's a very, very useful tool.
Yeah.
I think it's super useful.
It's not perfect,
No.
but it's
the ability to go in there for 2 minutes and come out and then say, and especially we had the video so they could show me right there, and then to be able to say, okay, see what you're doing there, and then step in and you're doing it versus in the real thing. That's like a 50-minute lag. Even if you got a plane waiting, you're down, you're repacking, you're getting back up, and then you're jumping again, trying to stabilize, and it's a few, it's like seconds where you're trying to do it, and you don't have a lot of ability for them to give you a lot of signal to stabilize for enough time to where you really feel it. Right. In the tunnel, when I had things right, I was like, okay. I mean, there were times where I felt like I was spinning good. Yep. I was navigating really good. I was understanding like forward and back motion. Mm-hmm. And what's nice about being essentially in like a fish tank is you understand forward and back motion. Yeah. When I was in the air, I didn't understand that most of my first jumps, I was just backsliding because, I was like trying to Superman. My arms were forward and my legs were coming up. So they were always chasing me. Yeah. But until I watched the footage after, now Andy's like, okay, you see how you're stable, but you're just backsliding the whole time. Whereas if you were in the tunnel, you'd be like, ding,
you just hit the
ding.
Wall. Right.
And I was frustrated with that. That was part of my frustration with the wind tunnel. Mm-hmm. But Jocko actually gave me really good advice. When I came out, he grabbed me to the side. He's like, hey, man, like, you are not going to have a freaking tube restricting you. You're going to jump out of this plane, and he's like, he's like, if you can fly stable, he's like, if you can be stable and you can navigate, he's like, you're not in this tank. Yeah. He goes, it's like you're on a whole different planet. He's like, it feels like you're in outer space with no limitations. And he's like, dude, don't sweat this stuff right now. He goes, if you get your arch down and you understand the basics, like listen to them and understand the basics of being able to turn, being able to go forward or go back. And he's like, when you're up there, he's like, you can be off course 200 yards and you'll just be like, I nailed it.
Yeah.
Most military jumpers, if you put them in a tunnel, they can't stay off the glass. They're moving around way more than they actually think that they are. It takes a long time to get comfortable being inside that glass tube.
Yeah, that was really helpful. And then
it's so much fun, though.
But then if you can find, like I was telling you to stay on the X, that just any intersection of the mesh, once you have the ability to do that in the tunnel, like you'll go out of a plane and you'll just recognize what it feels like, and then you'll start seeing other people. You'll be like in the middle of a jump, and people are just coming by, and like they'll come down and like, dude, you were backsliding. It's like, no, I wasn't backsliding. You were a shit show all over the sky is what it was.
Sky trash.
I do recognize, like, I think it was my 5th jump. I vividly remember when everything felt right.
Did you ever just say screw it and do a flip? Because I did. Always.
He did it pole time once.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, I did.
4.
Best time.
I did.
Best time to do it.
Yeah, I did get to hear Andy give me the fail, but he gave me the nugget too. He's like, hey, so that twisting backflip you did right before, he's like, dude, that's cool.
Like, as you reached back to deploy your pilot chute, when you were on your back as you were going over,
he's like, that's cool. It's an advanced move. He goes,
Right. It's a new
but
technique.
but you fail. But you're gonna have to take that one over. He's like,
And he could have pulled doing a double backflip.
Oh, I'll show you the video. It's awesome.
I can't wait.
But I was what I really liked about that was I liked really having to key my focus so much that, you know, and it wasn't anything that you had said, but I was like monitoring my heart rate, and I was really monitoring everything about it, and I was trying to be lower and lower every single jump to where it's like, how freaking calm can I be on this? But because that's like that, I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that's something that you do have to work on as a competitor is, you know, it's essentially performance anxiety. And when you learn to control that, your ability to do a task is just like on a whole, it's like a multiplier.
Right.
And, you know, the one time, I think it was, well, I never felt my heartbeat ever.
You never got into a panic state. Like the biggest thing I watch when I teach people how to jump, I honestly just look at their face, because you can tell in their eyes and their facial reaction. And yours was just, I mean, like the first backflip you did, right? Not the one where you intentionally did it, not the unintentional pull sequence. So the next jump is a backflip.
Okay.
And the goal of the backflip when teaching people how to skydive, it actually sucks when they do it perfectly, because you're trying to get them unstable, so they can demonstrate to themselves, oh, I'm totally fine.
Right.
So he did some breakdance fighting. You ended up on your back a little bit. And
Hey,
a lot of people,
that's advanced.
but here's the thing, a lot of people, and I can show you again just faces of death videos on YouTube, people, you look at them in their eyes and they get over halfway through the backflip and they stall out, which is the most common. They don't complete the rotation. And then you see it in their face and they just go and they freak out and they start stiffening. And that's when it's just like
The blender.
It's a helicopter blade, and you're like, well, I'm supposed to get in there and save his life, but if I touch him, I'm going to die. So
Right.
I'll just give him the pull signal, and hopefully he sees it before he blacks out.
Is it like a cat when you spin them on the ground?
Dude,
Like you get them going to a point where all of a sudden they just like do a full layout, and you're like, they're out. They're
oh,
out.
they'll go out. I mean, there's a reason that you have the cypresses, but those turns, once you start extending and you get asymmetrical,
It's G-force then, right?
well, it builds. So
Yeah.
it starts, and then it'll push your body into a position where it wants to accelerate, and then you have to stop that early as an instructor. But you know it's going to go bad when the person gets on their back and their facial expression just changes. Like when I was watching you when you did the partial backflip, even on your pull sequence one, your facial expression didn't change, so I knew that you were okay. Like I'm watching your body a lot, but I'm just kind of just sitting there looking like, all right, he's with us. He's checking in. Like it's the same thing as pool comp. Like you're just watching the student like, okay, he's absorbing the information.
Yeah.
It's not going awesome, but he's going to work his way through it because he's cool, calm, and collected.
Right.
Well, I think the key to doing anything new, especially if it's stressful or hard, is taking away the whole environment. Like you can't look at what you're doing. You have to just neck everything down to what are the key fundamentals that I was taught. And then I literally just like went back into my 4-hour class with the slideshow where it's like, okay, here's the basics.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
you know, here's a position I need to have. If I have that, then I can conduct the other things. You know, I need to check in. You know, I need to make sure I can pull. You know, I need to make sure I can reach to pull.
Yep.
Here's when I do pull. And then other than that, I was so focused on trying to just improve on every little thing that you know, each jump you're trying to build on something that you didn't do the one prior. So
It's
I'm
the
like,
same as you teaching archery to Jocko when he looked over and said, there's a lot that you're not telling me right. And you're like, yeah, I'm picking my back. It's the same thing with skydiving.
Yeah.
I could overwhelm you with 50 different things, and what would end up happening is you'd have retrograde performance because you'd be like, what do I need to do? Instead, it's like, hey, man, smile and relax.
Yeah, I think that's coaching with anything. You know, like there's the Olympic weightlifting coaches who like, hey, you need to chest up, arms out, internally rotate or externally rotate your shoulders, and then you know, and you're like, dude, you're telling me 50 things I'm thinking about. I'm like, I just want to lift this weight and put it over my head. You know, like, calm down.
Yep.
And like you said, the best coaches find one cue that makes you do everything right.
Yeah.
So how did you feel that last jump? Because the last part of AFF is you climb outside and you do basically a floating exit.
Okay.
The first one is an instructor is, I mean, you know the deal. It's a graduation, right? So
Right.
jump 6, Dudley's on the outside of the plane, which is an interesting experience. But then Bobo is holding on to him. Jump 7, it's like, let's party, buddy. Stays on the inside, and Dud's out there on his own.
I thought it was easier because everything was more responsive to what I was trying to do. I think when you have someone else on you, obviously they're probably trying to counter some things as well, and maybe at times you're counteracting one another. So I felt like I instantly had control. I felt like I could see the plane way better than I did when someone else was on me. But that was the first time where I really felt like I was able to enjoy what I was doing, because once I felt so comfortable in the position, and then like I had to do a front flip, back flip, 360, and then I had to track.
Yep.
And as soon as I did the front flip was good, then the back flip I got a little bit squirrely, which was actually good because I remember being completely on my back and I'm like looking up, and I thought, okay, tuck one arm in,
roll out of bed.
Yeah, roll out of bed. So, and then when I did that and then arched back into that, I'm like, okay, well, I've literally gone through everything that they've talked about in one jump. I've done it all, and then literally I was like visualizing myself just doing a freaking full-blown flying head dive through a finish line. I'm like, all I gotta do is tuck and freaking rocket through the bullseye, dude.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I did that, I was hoping they would get close because I was so excited. And then I'm like, okay, I feel like now I'm able to like smile and have fun and like be myself. And whereas I'm just, and maybe certain people, maybe there's more people that are like that than what I think, but I was just so hyper analytical on, I just like doing things right. And I really, if I tackle something new, all I want is technique. Like if I really want to understand technique, and when I don't do it right, when I know, like especially like some of the things I started to feel when I wasn't doing it right, and I'm like, God dang it.
He would do that head nod during a jump. He's just sitting there. He's like flying. He's like, I'm like, no, get out of your head. Get out of your head. I'll debrief you later.
Well, I think that's important though. But the last jump, I had a lot of fun, and I was really wanting. Like then I was like, I want a plane just waiting. Like that. Then I was envious of the team guys that literally land, take their packs off, and just jump in another one and jump back on them. Like, dude, they got it made right now.
Full rigor support packing,
Full-time packers just literally just jump and go. Like
that takes a while to get to that level because I didn't even get there.
Well, the next time we were at the tunnel, when we go to San Diego, we'll just invite you to come down and join us,
that
man.
would be awesome.
Yeah, it's not that far from his house.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm like 20 minutes away from there.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you is, when you step away from your competitive world, what's five exercise movements that you'll never like delete out of your for like people listening, 5 things where it's like, you know what, I have limitations to my workouts. I really want to be in good shape. Some people are limited on maybe, their ability to get somewhere to do things, but like, what's 5 things that are just staples?
I think biking. I think that
I say that all the time.
Really?
It's low impact.
I'm shocked you said that, actually.
Yeah. Any kind of biking, the assault bike, a spin bike, any of that. Like, it's low impact, and it's like, it's going to get your legs strong. I think that for me, it's always been your legs are your foundation, right? If you have strong legs, you're going to get through a lot more than if you don't. Like obviously, like the bodybuilding community, like when conventional working out is typically opposite. It's like everybody wants to get a strong upper body, where
which doesn't work for a biped very well.
Right. So, like you have to have strong legs. So in biking, you can be aerobic and you can be anaerobic in it on as well. So I would never take away a bike. I think a burpee is a really great movement for any single person, right? You can You can get you know, you can do a little push up and a little jump, and it's insane how bad it can hurt. And then you can incorporate it with jumping over things or jumping up to certain heights. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Um, so I'll never stop doing burpees. I have my kids do them all the time. I would say probably a pull up as well. I think a pull up's
like that.
yeah, pull up. You know, then you are starting to go into the upper body a little bit, and again, you can do the same thing. You can use the kipping, or you can go strict, or you can go, you know, hands in, hands out, neutral grip, all the different weighted pull ups. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can do a pull up. So.
Band assisted if you're not even at the regular pull up level.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a great fundamental movement. I love squatting. I don't think I'll ever stop squatting. And again, same way, like air squats, you know, back squats, front squats, overhead squats, safety bar squats, box squats. Like there's so many different versions of it, so that wherever type of person you are, but again, it goes back to the legs, like having strong legs and a strong core.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. So what are we at, 4 there?
Mm-hmm.
4? One more, I would say. Nothing complex, you know. Everything I think it should be simple movements. Probably like a push-up or bench, you know, something like that.
I think a push-up's better, honestly. I haven't done bench in a long time.
Right.
I mean, I like supersetting. The other day I went up to the college to work out, and they're supposed to be open afternoon on Sunday, but for whatever reason they weren't. And you know, I just literally did pull-ups to failure, jumped down, did push-ups to failure, and then ran one lap, and then came back and did that for a mile. And it like didn't take long.
Yeah.
And it's like this is like the simplest of workouts that someone who just doesn't do anything, they could benefit a ton from something. And it's, you know, it's for a lot of people, you could do that in the same amount of time as what it would take you to get to a gym.
Right.
So what you just described, that workout would be right in the wheelhouse of traditional CrossFit programming.
Yeah.
That's the methodology. What you just described is the methodology that a lot of people confuse for 12 workouts in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd hope, you know, I would say the only reason I would say biking over swimming is because of you have to have
access to a pool.
access to a pool.
Yeah, swimming is phenomenal.
Swimming's huge. And not only does it, you know, physically, but like mentally too. Like you have to, like, you're literally staring at a black line, you know, for however long you're swimming, and it takes away your air source. Right? You have to learn how to efficiently breathe.
Yep.
And so then you have to stay calm when you're at, you know, an elevated heart rate. So I love that aspect of swimming as well.
Yeah, swimming is dynamite.
But the access is the only thing that I would say I'd go with a bike over that.
What was your favorite part about? We'll end on archery terms. What was your favorite part about learning to shoot? So you were taught on a silverback. So literally, we started last night working on just learning how to pull through the shot.
Right.
Is there? I mean, do you feel like that's immediately changed your perspective on?
Yeah, for sure. It's you know, like getting it all in line and everything needs to be in line, and then like that follow through. It's like every sport, you know, where it's just the little things that I don't notice that you notice. Like, oh, you know, if you don't keep pulling your elbow straight back, you know, you're gonna start to get lazy. And it's just like on anything. Like I like to relate it to like a golf swing. Like if you don't follow through on your club swing, you know, where you don't try to send your club head where you want the ball to go, then it's not gonna go that way.
Right.
So I don't know, I thought that was really cool. Just, you know, those little things.
Do you feel like with a compound and well, I think now you understand the difference between a good shot and a poor shot.
Right.
I shouldn't say a bad shot, but a poor shot. Yeah. Do you feel like you'll be able to have more fun with it now that you have that understanding of the two?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'll actually know how to make an adjustment to fix why I had that poor shot. You know, and I don't know. Obviously, still know very little, but I'll know enough to be like, oh, I didn't follow through there, or I didn't have my nose on my bowstring, you know, before I released it.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool. You got anything, Andy?
I've just enjoyed, like, over the past month, watching people start at the beginning of the process. It's been cool. Just from teaching people at the Easton Center and then people at Performance Archery, working with Jocko, seeing I learn every time I listen to you talk to somebody.
It's weird because I always get a little weird about wondering if, when people are there for a lot of different classes, I'm like, man, this probably sounds so repetitive to them.
You don't repeat yourself as much as you think. I think you pick your vernacular changes a little bit. I think everybody naturally does when you speak about the same topic often, but I mean, I just think it's cool. Yeah. I love watching people start. I mean, a year ago, literally, we were sitting out here, and I was in the same spot Josh is.
1 year.
Yeah.
Yesterday. Yeah, 1 year yesterday.
So it's just cool. I love watching it. And
one thing I haven't talked about, I need to talk about, let's talk about Free Range American.
Okay.
Because we haven't talked about it on my podcast at all. For those of you watching, you've seen some of the new shirts and some of my new hashtags for Free Range American. And this is, it's literally an idea that, was it here that day?
Mm-hmm. Sharon was sitting right there working on the Evolution shirt.
Oh my, that's right.
We were doing 100-yard reps in the grass.
We were shooting hundies, and then somewhere along the lines, did you say Free Range American?
I looked over, and we were walking to go pull arrows. I was like, dude, you should do a knock-on shirt that says Free Range American. And you didn't say much. You were just like, huh. We walked down, pulled the arrows, we walked back, and as I was knocking an arrow, you're like,
I think we were talking about like shooting your first free ranging. I said something like free ranging. Wait till you shoot your first free ranging animal or something like that. That's kind of how it started. Then you just said, "I'm a free range American, bro," and then you said that should be a shirt. And then
by the time we got back, you're like, "I don't think that's a shirt. I think that's a brand."
Yeah.
But it took us a year to figure it out.
Yeah, but you develop so many important aspects to it because. One of the things that I've always liked about Knock On is that it's not an archery brand that's specific to people that wear certain clothes or people that wear certain camo patterns or certain bows. Obviously, products that I personally use, I talk about a lot, but I also, I don't like it when I go somewhere and I couldn't, and people are like, well, sorry, I got a Matthews. It's like, dude, I've shot a Matthews, I've shot a PSE, I've shot a high country. Like, people shoot a lot of different things. Everyone's got some things feel better to you. I get that. We're all archers. And I always wanted the Knock On community to be about all archers and bow hunters. And then obviously Josh with you and, with Jocko, with Trevor, bringing people in from outside categories to where they can enjoy it. That's what I liked about the brand. And one of the things I said with Free Range American is like, man, there needs to be a movement where people are just exercising their freedom to do something cool in America. Like, in America, we have it made. I mean, for the three of us have all traveled around the world. There's things that we have here that people take for granted that you cannot do other places. Yeah. You just do not have it, and they're not something that you should take for granted. There's certain things in other countries that they're not going to change, and the way our trend is going as a country, we're probably going to gravitate more towards some of those other places, and you're going to lose some of your ability to exercise almost limitless freedoms to do things. So I was like, yeah, man, this needs to be it needs to be a brand that's certainly not about us. And for those of you listening, literally the reason why there's not this major launch on Free Range American and you're going to a website that's filled with galleries and ads is because I told Andy, I'm like, the direction of this brand is based off free ranging Americans, that everybody's doing something. Trevor's into skydiving, Chad Ward, Free Range American, he's out barbecuing, traveling the world just barbecuing. Josh, you're totally in the CrossFit world. We've got all these people, George is writing books. It's like, there's people that all they do is hike. I've got buddies that all they do is paddleboard, and that's their passion. But that's that's exercising a freedom. I saw one of my other buddies on Instagram went out and did a I don't know. They just went out into public land, and it looks like they did like a naked camp out or something, just to exercise their freedoms of.
Super awkward,
of,
but
yeah,
it's on board.
Yeah,
that
so
counts.
I just sat there and I'm thinking, these are people that are just, whether it's the freaking skydiving community, like I met a whole new community that I literally had. I went there and I'm like, I'm at that DZ and I'm looking around, and all you guys have your storage spots and your friends,
flare pieces and a tire,
flare pieces and a tire, and I'm like
using their different words.
Yeah,
like DZ,
dropping that down, and it's like this brand is really just about recognizing and
it's more
publicizing
about,
the awesome shit that you do, regardless of what it is.
I'd say it's less about who you are and more about what you do, because I
want to see it. Like that's the thing. That's why you tag us and we're reposting, because we want to see all the cool different activities that people are doing. When I go places and people say, "What do you do?" I get that question every time I'm on an airplane, and I'm like, okay. As soon as I say I'm an archer, people are like, "What?"
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you do GI Joes too at night, like what? And then it's like, no, there's actually, there's a professional archery world, and people are like, what? I had no idea about that. There's so many things like that that totally go right into the wheelhouse of what Free Range American is. And even when we bought it, or got the domains, I said, it's freerangeamerican.us. Like, this isn't .com. And that's what it's about. And check it out, freerangeamerican.us. And all you got to do is, if you do something cool, get a cool picture in your shirt. Nothing stupid. Like, we don't want it to be ridiculousness.
No juggling chainsaws.
No. If they didn't have chains on them, I'd probably post it. But yeah, do something awesome. Show us your passion, and come up with a Comic-Con character. FRA, freaking show up with that somewhere, and if it's cool, we're all about it. I mean, there's two guys here that dedicated a lot of their life to preserving those freedoms, and you're doing them and yourself a disservice by not getting out and utilizing every ounce of what it is to be an American, and that's getting after it, man. And whatever you love to do, if you've got the freedom to do it, do it.
Can't say any better than that.
Yeah, well said.
All right, knock on, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their day to listen, send feedback, write reviews. It's been awesome. Speaking of awesome, Free Range American has been received in a very awesome way. The posts are amazing. People are reaching out with questions. They're reaching out with locations for our Do Awesome Shit tour, which I'm not sure that's going to be the name of it, but I'm pretty sure I just created the best name ever right there. And supporting by purchasing some of the merchandise. But I will say this. For the guys out there, I don't know. You guys are kind of sucking a little bit, because the women's shirts are just as good as the men's, but more men's shirts are selling than women. I mean, come on. Surprise your significant other, your sister, your mom, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. I don't even know how much further down the road I could go with that. But do the right thing. Surprise them. Give them a little treat. And that's it. Take pictures of people and yourself. Hopefully not people, but of yourself doing awesome shit. Hashtag the Do Awesome Shit hashtag.